First, you'll need to remove the plates and accessories from the gearbox and mark the forward side of the stationary plate and the aft side of the pivot plate before proceeding. Here we're using a drill that matches the existing hole in the plate to align it on the drill press, clamping the work down, and we'll work our way up through 3/8, 1/2, and 5/8 to achieve the finish hole. Use WD-40 or kerosene as a drill lubricant. Be sure the work is clamped securely, that the table is secure and perpendicular. Now, although this footage is sped up 4 times, remember that large drill bits and reamers should be run at lower RPM. The most accurate finish hole would be achieved with a 39/64 bit followed by a 5/8 precision reamer. Here we are simply finishing with a 5/8 drill bit. You want to be sure that you do have a drill press that has enough capacity to handle a bit of this size. And here we're using a Noga tool to clean up the edges of the hole. You can also use emery cloth. And these parts are now ready to move on to the next step. The hardware includes an AN 4-16 bolt, retainers, Teflon washers, an AN washer, castle nut, and pin. The large bushing is machined for a press fit in the stationary plate. You can use a hydraulic press, arbor press, the drill press, or even a vise and wood blocks to press the bushing into place. Also make allowance for the bushing to protrude beyond the back side of the plate. Here we simply have a hole drilled in the bottom block. Using a transfer punch, you'll want to locate the center of each hole to be drilled. A sharpened drill rod or even a sharpened machine bolt can be used as a transfer punch to locate these holes. First, pilot drill the holes with a 3/32 or number 40 drill bit. Be sure to allow the bit to find the center punch mark to ensure that it's on center in the machined hole. After the number 40 bit, you'll want to upsize the holes with a number 25 bit, which is the correct size for a 1024 thread. Lubricate once again and tap the holes 1024. Keep your tap aligned properly and back off every turn or so to allow the chips to clear, or if you feel any resistance, these small taps can break easily and we don't want that to happen. Now it's time to install the 1024 socket head machine screws. You'll want to use some thread lock on these. You'll want to tighten these firmly, but do not over torque them. They could strip out in the aluminum. That's one reason why we use a coarse thread, to get a little more bite. Now we're cleaning up the back side of the holes with some emery cloth just to make sure there's no burrs or dings or trash. And you want to keep everything clean as possible throughout the process. Now place the 2 large Teflon thrust washers over the protrusion in the large bearing. Put the pivot plate in place, and now we're going to put 2 turns of shim stock into the clearance gap. This can be a little tedious, but take your time. Get it worked in there nice and smooth. Make sure it's not kinked. The shim will keep everything on center as we complete the process. Put the smaller bushing into place. And here I'm clocking that one hole where it has the best edge distance on the plate. Now get the hardware in correct orientation. Retainer, thrust washer, another thrust washer, another retainer, the AN washer, and the castle nut. Now tighten the nut and bolt very firmly so that none of the parts can rotate. Use your transfer punch to pre-mark the holes for drilling. Now it's time to disassemble the parts. Remove the hardware and the small bushing. And remove the shim stock from the bore. You may want to repunch these locations before proceeding. Once again, using a number 40 or 3/32 bit for the pilot holes. And finish with the number 25 bit. Once again, lubricate and tap all 3 holes 10-24. And as always, clean, deburr, and degrease. Make sure all of our surfaces and parts stay clean of debris. Using some emery cloth here to polish the bearing surface. Place the parts in proper orientation and reinstall the shim stock. Put the small bushing back in place. And attach it with the 3 10-24 socket head machine screws. Be sure to use some thread lock at this time. Bring the fasteners down even and snug, but do not over torque. Now pull the plates apart and get the shim stock out using a scribe or an O-ring pick. And we're done with the shim. Now it's time for lubrication. I'm using a 90 weight gear oil. You could also use grease. Just make sure that all the parts get a good coating of lube all around the bearing surfaces of the bushing. Now reassemble the plates. And once again, wiping down to get rid of the excess grease and oil. And time for the hardware. Bolt goes in from the forward side with the retainer and Teflon washer. Another Teflon washer. Retainer ring, AN washer, and castle nut. Tighten the castle nut firmly and then back off to the first available pin location that allows the plates to move freely. Install the cotter pin. And now we're done with the assembly. The part should move freely with no binding in any axis. And you can now reinstall the pivot plate assembly back on your machine. A proper logbook entry should be made by a certified mechanic or the holder of the aircraft repairman's certificate.